The envelope wasn't sealed, just folded once and slid under the door like a secret. No return address. No name. Just thick black paper, soft like velvet, with a time and a location printed in faint silver ink. 9:45 p.m. The hollow room. No phones. No guests. My wife claimed she didn't see it, said it was probably someone's weird wedding invite. But I found her staring at it for too long. She didn't throw it out. She tucked it into her purse. She thought I didn't notice. By morning, there were whispers in the office. Jonah overheard his girlfriend on the phone using that same name, the hollow room. Felix saw his fiancée delete a message with that address. Caleb found a new dress hidden in a bag with the tags still on. None of our partners mentioned plans. None of us were invited. Saturday night came fast. The three of us waited in Jonah's truck down the street from the address. We didn't speak. The longer we sat there, the more I wondered what we'd even do if we found them. Were we spying? Were we overthinking? Or were we finally just done playing stupid? At 9:43 p.m., a black car pulled up. Then another. And another. We watched our wives step out, one by one. Heels clicking. Eyes lit up with excitement none of them had shown us in months. They didn't knock. A man in a dark suit opened the door and nodded like he knew each of them personally. They disappeared inside. We waited 2 more minutes. Then we got out. The front of the building had no sign. Just a black curtain behind the glass. There were no sounds. No music. No laughter. Just silence, like the whole place was soundproofed. Inside, the air was warm, the hallway glowing with amber light. At the end was a single door, slightly open. Jonah pushed it, and that's when the noise hit us, like stepping into another world. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared us for what we saw when that door opened all the way. The first thing that hit us was the lighting. Not flashing strobe lights or disco balls, but a deep crimson glow that painted everything in shades of seduction. The air was thick with something floral and smoky, and the music, low, rhythmic, slow, pulsed through the floorboards like a heartbeat. It wasn't a party. It was something else. Something curated. To the left was a bar made of dark glass. No labels on the bottles, just hand-poured drinks by a bartender in a tuxedo who didn't make eye contact. People were already mingling. Men in tailored suits. Women in cocktail dresses that left nothing to the imagination. Laughter spilled like wine, but it wasn't friendly. It was electric. Hungry. We didn't belong. That was the feeling, instantly. Not just like outsiders, but intruders. Everyone here knew something we didn't. Caleb was the first to step forward, trying to blend in, scanning the crowd like he was at some business mixer. I was behind him, hands in my pockets, trying not to visibly shake. Jonah stayed close to the wall, eyes darting toward every entrance and every hand that lingered too long on someone's waist. No one stopped us. No one asked why we were there. And then, I saw her. Not Lenny. Not yet. But Tori. Caleb's wife. She wasn't at the bar. She wasn't with a group. She was on a velvet couch, leaning into a man with salt and pepper hair, his hand resting on her bare thigh. She was whispering something in his ear. Her wedding ring flashed as she tipped her head back and laughed. Caleb froze. I don't even think he blinked. Just stood there as if his brain had short-circuited. I grabbed his arm and tried to pull him back, but he wouldn't move. Jonah muttered, "We shouldn't be here." He was right. But then I saw Lenny, and everything else went silent. She walked out of a back room. Her dress, gold, shimmering, tight, was not something I'd ever seen before. Her hair was down in waves, and she was smiling. Not politely. Not like the smile she gave me when I asked about her day. This was different. She looked powerful, confident, alive in a way I hadn't seen in years. She was holding hands with someone. A man. You know those moments where your stomach drops and your ears ring and it feels like your body just decided to leave your soul behind? Yeah, that. I didn't recognize him. Tall, probably mid-40s, close-shaved beard, designer shoes. He whispered something into her ear and she blushed. She actually blushed. Then she leaned in and kissed his cheek. I backed up. I needed air. Or to scream. Or to wake up. But the nightmare wasn't done yet. Because Felix hadn't seen his fiancée yet. And when she appeared from the same room as Lenny, her lipstick smudged and her eyes wild with adrenaline, she was adjusting the strap of her dress and holding a glass of champagne someone else had clearly just poured for her. The three of us were frozen. This wasn't some flirtatious happy hour. This wasn't innocent. This was organized. Intentional. Hidden behind locked doors and velvet curtains, curated like a secret society none of us were meant to see. We weren't just watching them lie. We were watching them live double lives. We didn't speak. Not right away. The three of us drifted to a corner like ghosts, uninvited guests at our own lives falling apart. Jonah leaned against a column, rubbing his temples. Caleb just stared at the couch, where Tori was now feeding the older man something from a gold tray, her laugh low and sultry. I couldn't stop looking at Lenny. The way she moved around that man, casual, familiar, like this wasn't the first time. Maybe not even the third. It was Felix who finally broke the silence. She told me she was saving herself for our honeymoon. He whispered, voice tight, almost childlike. That shattered me more than anything I'd seen. And yet, we still didn't leave. I don't know why. Maybe because leaving would make it real. Maybe because we were looking for some kind of misunderstanding, something to explain what we saw that wasn't what it looked like. That's when the host appeared. A tall woman in a black silk suit glided toward us like she owned the room, and maybe she did. Her eyes swept over each of us, and for a split second, I thought she might ask us to leave. But instead, she smiled, as if we'd passed some invisible test. "You gentlemen are new," she said softly. "No judgment here. But if you're going to stay, I need to go over the rules." "Rules?" No one replied. She continued. "No recording. No confrontations. No labels. What happens here is between consenting adults. If you're uncomfortable, you may leave quietly through the same entrance." We stood in stunned silence. She looked at me, the weakest one of the group, the one still trembling like a leaf. "You're not the first to walk in thinking you were someone's husband," she added, like it was a twisted inside joke. "But tonight, that doesn't matter. Everyone plays who they want to be." Then she turned, heels tapping, and vanished into the crowd. That sentence haunted me. You're not the first to walk in thinking you were someone's husband. What were we then? Audience? Clowns? Footnotes in someone else's life? A commotion stirred near the back, where the curtains moved again and another pair stepped out. This time, it was Lenny and the man she'd been with. He handed her something small and black. She smiled, kissed his hand, and tucked the object into her purse. A key? No, it was a chip, like a hotel room keycard. They walked past us. I turned my face, but not fast enough. She saw me. Her eyes met mine, and for a moment, her face twisted with something close to panic. Then, composure. She walked past like I was a stranger. I'd never felt so erased in my entire life. Caleb finally moved, pushing past me, eyes locked on Tori. "I'm gonna say something," he muttered, fury rising in his throat. But before he could reach her, two men, calm but firm, stepped in his path. Not bouncers, not security, but definitely not guests. They didn't speak, just stood there with arms crossed, blocking the way like this was all part of some larger system. That's when it clicked for me. This wasn't just a party. This was a network. And our wives weren't just slipping away from us. They were already gone. We didn't leave. Not yet. Maybe we should have. Maybe we were cowards. But you don't run when you're that deep in disbelief. You stay. You wait. You pray that somehow, something will flip the script and make it all make sense. That didn't happen. Instead, we started noticing the architecture of the place. Every hallway had shadows that moved like people watching behind glass. Every door had a subtle symbol, circles, triangles, keys, and the guests, mostly women, seemed to know exactly where to go, what to do, and with whom. It wasn't chaos. It was choreography. And in the center of it all, the stage. We hadn't noticed it before because the lights had been low. But slowly, deliberately, a dim spotlight lit the velvet platform at the heart of the room. A man in a crimson mask walked across it, nodding to the host in black, who had reappeared near the bar. She raised one hand. The room quieted, and then the music changed. The rhythm slowed, thickened, became almost ritualistic. The energy shifted from flirtation to something more primal. Women began moving toward the platform, called by something unseen. Some alone, some in pairs, most not wearing wedding rings. And then we saw her again, Lenny, my wife. She was no longer holding a drink. She was holding the hand of another woman. Her expression had changed. There was no hesitation, no shame. She was being led behind the curtain, toward a room marked with a gold emblem I couldn't decipher. I wanted to yell her name. I wanted to run up and pull her back, but I didn't. I just watched as she disappeared behind the folds of velvet, swallowed whole by whatever was on the other side. That's when Jonah lost it. He grabbed Felix's arm, pointed to the opposite end of the room, and muttered, "That's her. That's Grace. She just kissed someone. I swear to God, she just—" His voice cracked. Felix didn't respond. His fiancée, Grace, was leaning against a wall, whispering into the ear of a man easily 20 years older. The man's hand was resting on her lower back, possessive and firm, like he'd known her for years, like he wasn't just borrowing her for the evening. We moved fast, instinctively, like a flock of birds trying not to get separated midair. But we didn't make it far. The black-suited host stepped in front of us again. Her smile was still there, but it had sharpened. Less amused. More surgical. "You need to leave," she said quietly. "You've seen enough." "No." Caleb snapped, his voice trembling. "No, we haven't. I want my wife. I'm taking her home." She raised an eyebrow. "Is she your wife here? Or just someone you used to know?" I don't remember who threw the first shove. Maybe it was Jonah. Maybe it was all three of us at once. But suddenly, hands were grabbing us. Men in gray suits emerged from the shadows, calm but brutal. Not a brawl, just swift, controlled removal. We were dragged toward the door like we were garbage taken out after hours. But before they could toss us out, something strange happened. A voice from above called out, through a speaker, maybe. Low, male, deliberate. "Wait." The guards froze. And out from the far corridor walked the last person I expected to see that night. Lenny. Her lipstick was smeared. Her necklace broken. Her eyes, God, her eyes, looked right through me like I was no one. She held up a hand to the guards, and they backed off like dogs who'd just heard their master's whistle. She walked up to me slowly, stepped so close I could smell the perfume she hadn't worn in years, and leaned in toward my ear. "You weren't supposed to see this." I stared at her. At the woman who once cried when we watched sad movies. The woman who used to text me poems. Who I thought I knew. She reached into her purse. My body tensed. But she didn't pull out a weapon. She pulled out my wedding ring. The one I hadn't noticed was missing from my finger until that moment. "I'll send someone to get your things," she whispered. "But not tonight." Then she turned around and walked back into the shadows, leaving me standing there with a spinning head, an empty hand, and a world I no longer recognized. I don't remember the ride home. Jonah drove. Or maybe it was Caleb. We didn't speak. Didn't argue. Didn't cry. Just silence. That kind of silence that doesn't come from peace, but from impact. The kind you get after a crash, when the glass is still falling, but your mind hasn't caught up. My phone was dead. Or turned off. I don't know. I didn't care. When I walked into the apartment, it felt like breaking into someone else's life. The air still held Lenny's perfume, faint and ghostly. Her scarf was on the hook by the door. A half-empty cup of tea on the table. It was all there. All untouched. All fake. I sat on the couch, still in my shoes, and stared at the floor for what must have been hours. Not crying. Not thinking. Just broken. Like a computer stuck in a reboot loop. Every time my brain tried to process it, something short-circuited. She looked me in the eyes and told me I wasn't supposed to see. She took my wedding ring. She said she'd send someone. Send someone? Who even talks like that? The next day, my building's front desk called to tell me a package had arrived. I didn't go pick it up right away. I was afraid. That's the truth. Afraid of what would be inside. But eventually, I went. And there it was. A matte black box with no name. Inside, my clothes. Neatly folded. My cologne. My toothbrush. A note. "You can keep the apartment. I'll stay at the condo. Let's not make this uglier than it needs to be. L." That was it. She ended 8 years with a one-sentence note. Felix called that night. Said he tried confronting Grace. She denied everything. Said it was a performance, an immersive theater piece she got invited to through an art collective. She laughed. Laughed in his face. Said, "You don't understand modern expression." He moved into his brother's place. Jonah didn't call. He vanished. 3 days later, Caleb showed up at my door, eyes bloodshot, hands shaking. He said he'd been doing research. Digging into the venue, the event, the guests, the names. Said it wasn't just one night. Said it had levels. Membership. A tiered system of access. That it moved locations every month. That women got invited first, men had to be vouched for. He said Tori had been going for at least 6 months. "She has a whole life I didn't know about," he whispered, like a man who saw something crawl out from under his house. Friends I've never met. A bank account I didn't know existed. And she's not even trying to hide it anymore. I asked him why he was telling me all this. What he wanted from me. He said he wanted to go back. Back? I laughed. But he didn't. I need to see more. I need to understand how deep this goes. You saw how calm they were, how organized. That wasn't chaos. That was structure. That was a society. A society. That word stuck with me. Because the truth is, it wasn't random. They knew we'd come. Lenny saw me, and she wasn't surprised. She was prepared. And the way those men stepped in front of Caleb? Trained. Rehearsed. Like they'd done it before. That night, I opened the laptop. I didn't want to, but I had to know. I searched for the hollow room. Nothing. I searched deeper, digging through forums, hidden pages, reverse image searches from that invitation. Finally, I found something. A post, buried in a dead subreddit, deleted almost instantly after being posted 2 years ago. Screenshot archived in some obscure thread. They don't take your wife. They let her leave herself. And once she's inside, you stop being real. 2 days after Caleb's visit, I found a USB drive inside my mailbox. No envelope. No note. Just a matte silver stick, warm like it had been held tightly. There were no fingerprints, no markings, no logos. I stared at it for almost an hour, debating whether to plug it in or burn it. I plugged it in. One folder. No name. Inside, 7 video files, each labeled only with a timestamp. No context. No audio. The first clip showed the velvet hallway I'd walked through that night. Only this time, the camera was positioned high. Security footage, maybe. In the frame, Lenny and the man in the crimson tie. She was laughing. He leaned in. She kissed him. She looked happier than I had ever made her. The second clip was shorter. It showed Tori and another woman, not one I recognized, pulling 2 men behind the curtain. One looked married. The other was older, hesitant. They didn't return. The third file stopped me cold. It was Caleb, from weeks ago, sitting at a bar I'd never seen before, looking at his phone with a haunted expression. He didn't know he was being filmed. Behind him, Tori walked in alone. Clip 4. Felix. Clip 5. Jonah. Clip 6. Me. I was standing in front of my own apartment building, holding groceries, smiling, awkwardly, at Lenny through the window as she poured tea. The timestamp showed this was 2 months before the hollow room. Who had been watching me since then? Clip 7 was corrupted. Just static. But halfway through the mess, one frame popped through. A face, completely still. A man. No pupils. Just white, reflective lenses where eyes should have been. He was staring directly into the camera. I yanked the USB out. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, Caleb was gone. No answer. No texts. His number disconnected. I checked his apartment. Empty. No note. No sign of forced entry. The landlord said he'd broken his lease early, left in the middle of the night. That same day, an envelope appeared under my door. No return address. Inside was a single Polaroid. It showed me, asleep, curled up on the couch, blanket half off. The timestamp on the corner read, 3:17 a.m. That morning, someone had been in my home, and I had no idea. I took it to the police. They told me it was probably a prank. A sick one? Sure, but nothing actionable. Unless they made threats or stole something, there's not much we can do, sir. I wanted to scream. But something even worse happened later that day. When I checked my closet, all of Lenny's old clothes, the ones she left behind, were gone. Not donated. Not boxed. Gone. Her scarf. Her jacket. Her slippers. Even her shampoo in the bathroom. In their place was a note, taped to the inside of the empty drawer. Closure is a privilege. You don't qualify. My knees buckled. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It wasn't even about her. It was about removal. Systematic, precise, and terrifyingly efficient. Like someone was undoing my life from the inside out. And the worst part? I couldn't even prove it was happening. Because everything looked normal. Too normal. Too clean. The drawer behind the mirror had always stuck slightly when you pulled it. Lenny used to curse under her breath about it, twisting it left, then yanking it out just right. I hadn't touched it since she left. I don't even know why I opened it that morning. Maybe I just wanted to see if anything of hers was left. There it was. Flat, black, wrapped in a silk scarf I'd given her 3 birthdays ago. An old phone, not her main one. No case. No fingerprint lock. Just a 4-digit code. I should have stopped there. Left it buried. But my hands were already moving. Her birthday. Denied. Our anniversary. Denied. Her father's death date. Open. The home screen was empty. Just a single folder labeled Drift. Inside, screenshots. Dozens of them. The first few were innocent. Flights. Hotel bookings. Restaurant reservations I never knew about. But then the names appeared. Men's names. First initials only. Paired with cities. Paired with dates that overlapped mine. Some of them included photos, her in different dresses, different hotels, always with a glass of wine in hand, always not looking at the camera. Then the video file started, and everything changed. One clip was shot in what looked like a hotel suite, dimly lit, with ambient music playing from another room. Lenny was speaking softly, not to the camera, to someone else in the room. Her voice was low, sultry, confident. She spoke about me. He thinks I'm at a yoga retreat, she said, laughing. He still folds my laundry. It's almost adorable. I might keep him around just for that. Laughter from the other person. You're cruel, the voice replied. She shrugged. Not really. He's a spectator in his own life. He never noticed when I stopped loving him. I left before I ever left. I nearly dropped the phone. Another file was just an audio recording, one long voicemail she left someone. She said my name once. Not with hate. Just pity. He's the kind of man who'd die in the passenger seat, still buckled in, still hoping the driver knows what they're doing. And then the last thing. Not a video. Not audio. A message. In a secure notes app. A list. Exit protocol, EM. Phase 1, distance. Phase 2, mirror behaviors. Phase 3, silent reset. Phase 4, trigger encounter. Phase 5, controlled detachment. Phase 6, shadow memory erasure. Phase 7, archive and disappear. Each phase had check marks. All 7. Complete. I stared at that last line for so long it stopped making sense. Shadow memory erasure? What did that even mean? Was this real? Some kind of psychological game? A cult? Or was it just her? The real her? Treating love like an experiment? I tried to take screenshots. The phone shut down. Dead. When I plugged it in, nothing happened. Not even the charging icon. Later that night, the power went out in my apartment. Just mine. No storm. No breaker trip. I checked the hall. Every other unit was lit. A slip of paper had been slid under the door again. No envelope. No handwriting. Just 3 printed words. You touched it. That was all. I locked every window. Every door. But I didn't sleep. Not even for a second. The phone never turned back on. And I knew, deep down, that I wasn't being warned anymore. I was being watched. The day I decided to disappear, I didn't pack a bag. I didn't leave a note. I didn't even take the phone, the dead one, the cursed one. I just walked out of my apartment at 3:16 a.m., 1 minute earlier than the time stamped on the last photo they took of me sleeping. It felt symbolic. Like I was finally taking something back, even if it was just 60 seconds. I didn't know where I was going, only that I couldn't stay. For the first 2 weeks, I didn't speak to anyone. I found a motel 4 towns over, paid in cash, and let the silence bleed everything out of me. There were moments I almost turned around. Moments I almost called Caleb's disconnected number, just to see if he'd pick up. But then I remembered, I was never supposed to leave with memories. And yet I had. One night, while walking aimlessly down a coastal road, I saw something that stopped me cold. A red door. Old wood, chipped at the edges, freestanding in an open field. No building, no structure, just the door. My heart seized. But it wasn't real. It was an art piece. A local installation called Thresholds. A plaque beneath it read, "Not all doors are meant to be opened. Some just need to be walked past." I stood there for an hour, staring at it. And then I smiled. My first smile in weeks. Because that was the moment I realized I didn't need to solve the mystery anymore. I didn't need to understand what the hollow room was, or who sent the notes, or how Lenny's world worked. That was her story, not mine. Mine was starting now. It began with a job at a bookstore in a sleepy town that didn't ask for resumes. The owner, a grizzled man named Walt, let me restock shelves and drink bad coffee behind the counter. He didn't ask questions. He just nodded at me one morning and said, "You look like you finally dropped the weight, son." And I had. Not the weight of Lenny's betrayal. That would stay, in some form. But the weight of needing to be who she wanted. The weight of pretending I hadn't been erased. I met someone, eventually. A woman named Eloise who taught piano to kids, and believed in leaving your phone at home when you walked. She never asked about my past. She just made space for my silence until I was ready to fill it. One evening, I told her everything. Not the strange parts, not the men in suits or the list of protocols. Just the truth, that I had loved someone who didn't love me back, and I lost myself trying to fix it. That I stayed too long in a place I was never welcome. That I forgot I was allowed to walk away. She didn't flinch. She just reached over, took my hand, and said, "You didn't get erased. You escaped." And that's the ending, I guess. Not the revenge I once fantasized about. Not the closure I thought I needed. But freedom. A quiet life. A warm bed I don't have to check twice. A morning where I wake up and no one's watching me. A night where I sleep because I'm tired, not because I've given up. And the ring? I threw it into the ocean a month ago. Watched it vanish beneath a wave like it had never mattered. Funny thing is, I don't miss her anymore. Not because I've forgotten her, but because I finally remembered me.